Hello, everybody, and welcome on back. Today, we have an amazing episode where we talk a lot about poop. And this episode was with my friend and somebody that I got to meet through the podcast, Awais Spall. Awais is a functional medicine practitioner, a specialist in Ayurveda, and he owns his own company where he helps individuals come in to analyze their gut biome to look at the bacteria, the parasites, and basically everything going on within your microbiome systems. And this podcast, we go on a wild journey. We talk about how at a young age, essentially Oasis was almost burned alive inside of a hot pot, lost like literally sheets of his skin, how he led to a disease which caused him to have spasms, how he had a mold disease which made him lose 50 pounds, and he's 6'4", and he was down to 128 pounds at one point in his life, and how the struggles in his health journey ended up leading him to want to learn about his health and how he could help others. He is a wealth of knowledge and he shares so much information, and we talk a lot about poop because it is essentially a description of what's going on within the body, and the bacteria and the parasites that are within your fecal matter really have an effect on who you are, your personality, your eating habits, and the decisions that you make on a daily basis. So if you're interested in diving in today to hear more about how your gut affects every aspect of your life, then tune on in. Our sponsor for today is going to be Total Bottle. Total Bottle is a company that I also own an ownership stake in. This bottle is the newest and best bottle on the market, hands down, and I support this company wholeheartedly. I've invested in it, and what I can tell you is this is going to hopefully change the world for the better. This bottle was created so that we don't have to use single-use plastics in our every single day life. So the bottle is going to have several components. The first component is it has a plate which is settled around it, and this plate turns into a little bowl, and you simply clip the sides, and you then have a plate that you can eat out of while you are on the go. And it basically sits like that, and it's perfectly shaped, and has a logo on the bottom, and you can eat out of it. Now, you might wonder, how am I going to eat out of it? Well, first, you're going to take off the cup. We have a 12-ounce cup right here. The bottle itself is 24 ounces, fully insulated for heat or cold. And then within the bottom here, you have a little handle that you can pull. Whoa, and there goes the spork coming right on out. And there's a foldable spork. And actually, I helped to redesign this spork because most sporks are crap and you can't eat anything with them. So these have very sharp, long ends. You can eat a steak with this if you have a knife, and it will work perfectly. And so once again, this is everything that comes in the bottle. Total Bottle for your everyday uses. You can use this for the gym. You can use it for everyday life. You can use it when you go out to eat at a little convenient place, or you can use it for camping. I know that the person who invented this actually designed it for Burning Man originally, and it was for that, but it can be used at festivals or whatever type of adventure you're looking to go on. So thank you so much. If you're looking to buy one of these bottles, you can buy it at totalbottle.com, TOTALBOTTLE.com, and you can get yours today. We'll have a promo code in the details so you can get a little bit of a discount for listening to this podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, everybody, welcome on back. Today, we have an amazing guest, which I'm so excited to do a dive deep today on Ayurvedic medicine and how we can improve our health through what we eat and what goes into our body. And today, we have Awais Spall. Correct? Yes? Okay, sorry, I didn't want to mess that up. Awais Spall, and I'm super excited to have him here. Thank you so much for coming in. He was actually connected to me through a friend, Matthew Cohen. I don't know if any of you guys remember the guest. He specialized in stem cells, and he just knows a breadth of individuals that specialize in all kinds of different ways to improve your health and to biohack your life to improve every quality as you move throughout your day. So today, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to introduce Awais, and I'm going to give you guys a little bit of background about him, and then we're going to dive into his story, and we're going to talk about how he's able to help as many people as he helps on a daily basis. Awais Spall is a functional medicine practitioner based out of Santa Monica. Prior to this, Awais worked as a formulation chemist, developing various functional foods. Here, he combined his knowledge of formulation chemistry with his background in Ayurvedic herbalism. Awais eventually left the formulation world to launch Integrative Oasis, a microbiome-focused health practice. His practice integrates cutting-edge regenerative medicine, functional medicine, and Ayurveda to help people optimize their health and redefine their human potential. So today, it sounds like we're going to be talking about a breadth of topics on how we can improve our health. And I guess I want to just just start from the beginning. Like, how did you end up getting into functional medicine, and what was that journey like for you?
That's a great question. So it started with my own health journey. I was 17 or 18 years old, and I started developing these complex pains all over my body. And it was like my muscles started spasming and
Okay.
started hurting. And I went to the doctor. They're like, there's nothing we can give you. Here's a muscle relaxer. And that obviously didn't do anything. And then as the pains got worse, it started turning into a diagnosis that they called myofascial pain syndrome.
Okay.
And it was these crazy spasms everywhere in my body, pretty horrible thing. And then I remember I just had this mindset that was, I'm going to figure this out. I have to figure this out. I don't care what the conventional doctors are telling me. So I started just seeing doctors just outside of, the traditional medical model. And I saw a few specialists, and then eventually I worked with a doctor who was working with high-level NBA athletes at the time, and he injected me with a few peptides, and that helped more than anything else. And it almost permanently restored function into some of the specific stuff I was going through. Then from there, I kind of got bitten by the health bug, right?
Yeah. Before we go on to that, so I mean, how did these spasms start? Was it like was there a major change in your life, or did you go through like a trauma or like some sort of stressor, or was it like, what do you think caused that? Because it's so strange that it just came up out of nowhere.
That's a really great question. Yes, it was kind of strange, and I think every few years as I've evolved in my health practice and my understanding of the human subject, I've sort of changed my perspective of what happened. But now I kind of see it as the culmination of trauma that my body was storing from traumatic events that I had when I was 5 years old, and combination and how that may have affected my tissues and my development. So I'm working with a biomechanic specialist. I've been working with this person, and he believes that some of my fascia became constricted because of that trauma. And then the fascia constriction led to a lot of downstream health effects in my GI tract, in my muscle skeletal structure, even in my face and my facial development. So it's been really interesting to think about how all of those things could happen. On one level, you could even say that what I experienced at that time was maybe the culmination of ancestral trauma that had been culminating in the Spall clan for, generations, and that it was an awakening. So I think pain is always connected to our purpose, and that's kind of what I felt like it was for me.
Got it. Okay. And so for the guests that are listening, a lot of them might hear the term fascia and myofascial response. Like, I have a general understanding because of being a personal injury attorney. But from my understanding of what fascia is, it's essentially the connective tissue. It's like a white fibrous material that is helping to hold together the muscles, and almost it kind of helps to protect you. And so what it sounds like is the traumas that you suffered, your body probably started having a physical response. And as you had that physical response, the fascia would tense up, and it would basically be protecting you and maybe even keeping you in that positions that correlated to how you responded to that trauma. And then it was causing spasms because the fascia got so tight, and it was causing you to constrict in ways that were unnatural. Is that right?
That's a beautiful way to put it. I would say that's very right. Yes.
Okay, got it. And so, do you want to share a little bit about what those traumas were in childhood so people can understand how this can lead to a physical result, or did you not want to talk about that today?
No, I think sharing our stories is really, really important.
Yeah.
So when I was 5 years old in Pakistan, I fell into a giant cauldron of boiling water,
Oh, wow.
bubbling, boiling.
Jesus.
And I slipped on some rice. This was at a wedding. Like, there was like wood underneath it. This is a giant cast iron cauldron.
Oh my God.
I fell in, and I stood in there. I don't know how long I stood in there, and then an uncle pulled me out. And the fashion in Pakistan at the time was very like Indiana Jones meets colonial, kind of early American colonial culture, right? So I was wearing an all tan outfit. My belt was cinched up above my belly button, super tight. And the belt was so hot, my uncle had trouble pulling my pants down because they realized they had to remove my clothing. Otherwise, I'm going to burn from the
Yeah.
clothing. It's going to start attaching to my skin.
Yeah.
So the belt was really hot. He couldn't move it. So he just pulled my pants down.
My God.
And skin just like pulled off with it. It was quite a thing. And then obviously
Quite a thing is great. That's insane. I'm just glad that I mean, do you have a bunch of physical scars from this, or is this stuff
No.
that's recovered? That's a miracle.
Every 5 years
Yeah.
your skin like regenerates, right?
Yeah.
So every 5 years I've like checked and I'm like, oh wow. So there's one scar on my right abdominal that's left and
Yeah.
it's barely visible.
Okay. Got it. That's wild. Do you remember the experience vividly?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure it's something you'll never forget.
Yeah, I've done a lot of healing work around it.
Yeah.
The trauma wasn't just the physical pain, it was also there's emotional imprinting that happens. Like a lot of the women in my family, my mom, my sister were very emotional.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of guilt on their face. They just looked guilty. That imprinting through the facial pattern and what's called mirror neurons
Yeah.
kind of left me feeling like it was almost like they felt guilty. So then I felt guilty. And then you kind of start thinking, oh, I did something wrong, right? I didn't even know this until I did some deep inner work on this a few years ago. And then I was like, oh, wow, that was actually a big part of it. And obviously the physical stuff, sometimes I'll just find myself being terrified of a bowl of soup.
Yeah.
When I go out for pho, I just touch the soup and I'm just like, I have like a flashback and I never knew what was going on. It was a few years ago that I realized, I'm like, oh, I'm going back to that memory.
Yeah. That's wild. What an experience. Yeah. I luckily it didn't lead to more, physical damage, but it does seem that the emotional scarring that resulted from that event, it did end up turning into physical responses throughout your life, and a culmination of how you react to little things like how you eat pho, or when you deal with soup, or just maybe even looking at fire. Sometimes I'm sure it could be very triggering for you, and every time that happens, you're probably physically are constraining or constricting, and it just turned out that not until you were 17, 18 years old that the culmination of all these events started having a physical sickness, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You went to the doctors and you got treatment for that. What exactly did they do for you to help you treat with this myofascial release, you said it was called, or what was it called one more time?
So the diagnosis was myofascial pain syndrome, MPS, and the conventional doctors did nothing.
Yeah.
But some of the specialists I went to, every specialist promised that, oh, I can solve this.
Yeah.
This injection, it was prolotherapy.
Yeah.
I got injected with PRP at some
Yeah.
point, rich plasma. I got osteopathy, right?
What is osteopathy?
Cranial osteopathy. It's a manipulation technique similar to chiropractic, much, much gentler in its
Got it.
approach.
Okay, so like a chiropractic adjustment, but they probably use a tool instead of like doing a physical manipulation.
They don't use tools, they use their hands. And they work with the spine. I don't entirely understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
I just understand it as like much softer than chiropractic, maybe in the same arena as like craniosacral therapy, which is a very soft manipulation technique.
Gotcha.
So nothing really helped. I even had electroacupuncture done at one point where they put needles in, attach electrodes, and that was a terrifying experience.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, I had a doctor that wanted to do an epidural electrotherapy, which is when they put the needles in your like discs, and that just a part of my back just swelled up like a balloon, and it was like terrifying.
Yeah, I want to just give the guests, for those listening, a PRP injection is a platelet-rich plasma injection. They take your blood, they spin it into a centrifuge like 11,000 times. It separates the plasma from the blood. They take your plasma and then they inject it back in the place that is causing you pain to help promote healing. An epidural is a steroid injection, which essentially is an anti-inflammatory to help reduce inflammation, because a lot of time you're in pain is because of inflammation. So just for those who don't know what those terms are, so they can understand. So electrotherapy with an epidural, I've never even heard of that. That's very interesting. I've done PRP injections myself. They help. Did anybody ever do gua sha on you, or metal scraping with a scraping tool?
Yes, that would help a little bit. That would help a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had an acupuncturist that did some gua sha,
Okay.
and that helped a little bit. I think at that time I was really, you just don't think about the body as an integrated whole, and I was like, it's external. I have to fix this external thing. It's not connected to the internal. And then the peptide injections done locally by the doctor that was working with pro athletes, that was incredible.
Yeah.
That was insane.
Yeah.
And it was a paradigm shift almost. And he started giving me printouts of different peptides, and he would tell me this is the future. And this was in 2010, 2011, right?
Yeah.
Before peptides were really discussed.
Yeah, they're really booming now. They're getting more and more popular. How would you describe, like, for a general layperson, what is a peptide and what can it do for you?
So a peptide is an amino acid chain, and it's an amino acid chain that signals and communicates things to the body. Now, these chains can be very, very small, and those chains we call bioregulator peptides. And there can be longer chains as well. And there's literally peptides for everything. There's peptides for your muscle skeletal system, for healing joints, for healing fibrous tissue, right? And there's peptides that help the gut health tremendously. One of the most powerful compounds to heal quote unquote leaky gut, which is a topic I'm sure we'll get into,
Yeah.
is a peptide. There's peptides to modulate the immune system when the immune system's out of balance. There's peptides that are antimicrobial. Your immune system makes peptides. So I think right now we've documented about 3,000 peptides our body makes. So this is something you take externally when we say peptides, but your body's making all of these peptides itself.
And when it comes to peptides, because I take my own peptides too, it's typically through subcutaneous injections, means you're injecting it in like places of fat in your body, or you can eat it, correct?
Yes.
Okay, got it. And like my understanding of what peptides are, just, excuse my non-scientific description, but they're essentially like the building blocks of how things get done within the body. So like when you take vitamin C or when you take like a supplement, you're trying to trigger a response in the body. But vitamin C and these supplements don't guarantee the result. But when you take a peptide, it is the exact amino chain that the body recognizes and it triggers that result. Would that be a simple way of describing it?
Yes, that is, I think that works.
Yeah, it's kind of
There's a
like a
lot of
cheat
keys.
code is what I've kind of realized. It's like a way to make sure that you're getting the results you're looking for through the medication you're taking. Because from what I understand with supplements, right, like you can take a bunch of vitamin C, you can take vitamin D, and you can take all these things, but if you're not eating it with foods that would make it like more bioavailable or more absorbable in the body, a lot of those supplements are not even getting absorbed. We're just peeing out a lot of it. And so if you can afford to do the peptides, because the peptides are a little bit more expensive, they are kind of like a cheat code to get the results that you're looking for and to make sure that your body is going to get the recovery it desires.
Totally. It's way more efficacious. You're absolutely right. There's things that are, supplements are doing something different. There's oftentimes micronutrients we're deficient in.
Yeah.
But when you're injecting something, right? There's peptides that can be taken orally as well. But when you're injecting something, the bioavailability is going to be just really, really high.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And so you said that the thing that helped you with the MPS, correct, was the peptides that changed your life. Was it a specific peptide? Was it a multitude of different peptides, or what happened in that part of the journey?
There was two peptides. It was BPC 157, very, very popular right now.
Yep.
And then a growth hormone peptide called ceramorelin acetate. And at that time, we've evolved a lot in our science now. And, what we used to think at that time may seem silly, but we used to inject GH peptides locally into tissues to kind of facilitate.
What's a GH peptide?
A growth hormone peptide.
Okay, got it.
Growth hormone peptide, yeah. So ceramorelin acetate is a growth hormone peptide.
Yeah.
Some reason that combination was extremely effective for this pain I had in my front shoulder. I had sort of a frozen shoulder situation, and just like I couldn't move my arms beyond a certain point, and that was the worst of the MPS, and that almost completely resolved with the peptides.
Okay, and so how often were you taking these peptides, and was this doctor somebody that, like, how'd you get connected to them?
I started looking into trigger point therapy.
Trigger point injections?
Yes, and kind of the woman who pioneered trigger point therapy, which is Janet Travell.
Okay.
She had this book called The Big Red Book,
Mm.
and I bought a copy of it and I started just studying it, and then I was just like, how do I find someone who understands this framework? Because I was just stuck on the idea that these are trigger points that need
Yeah.
to be fixed somehow. So then I found that this doctor was a student of hers.
Mm. Gotcha. Okay, and so you ended up going. So you started going down this health journey, and so it started with fixing your own issues, and then after, like, how long did it take for you to resolve the problems?
So that issue, the frozen shoulder, the severity of the myofascial pain syndrome,
Mm.
kind of went away. I
Yeah.
was able to restore function in that part of my body.
Yeah.
I still had like other health issues started popping up.
Yeah.
It was kind of like my health journey felt like for years like a game of whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
My digestion got off. The pain would it stopped in my upper body and it stopped feeling like a trigger point, but it started like in my lower back. My hips would get dislocated very easily. And my digestion just was incredibly off for a period of time. And then after that, it turned into fatigue and all kinds of stuff. So it was just like a game of whack-a-mole.
And whack-a-mole, and you were trying to treat one symptom at a time.
Mm-hmm,
Got it. And so this led to you, like, and eventually choosing to go down this path in school, or what direction did you go from dealing with all these symptoms?
Yeah, so this was something where, I talk about this. My sister was going to med school at this time, and now my sister's an internal medicine doctor, and I wanted to go to medical school. I thought that was something I was passionate about. Seeing her experience, she would just come back like one semester with like a whole streak of gray hairs. She would look incredibly stressed. It was like
Yeah.
aging her. She told me at some point, like, I don't know if this is the right thing for you,
Yeah.
So it just made me, there was like layers of exams she was doing. And then I decided that, well, I don't think it's the right approach for me. I got really passionate about science, just studying biochemistry, but always having a deep interest in integrative medicine
Yeah.
from all aspects, physical medicine, functional gastroenterology, the microbiome. All of these things were my interests. I always found myself going to conferences, listening to lectures. The first training program I signed up for in herbalism when I was in Berkeley, it was not even something where I was like, oh, I'm going to use this for this career path. It was just like, oh, I'm just going to keep doing this.
Yeah, it's something you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So said you went to Berkeley.
Yes.
Yeah, is that where you went to undergrad, or was it graduate school?
Undergrad.
Undergrad. Okay, awesome. I went to UCSD myself.
Oh, awesome.
But so how do you like your time up at Berkeley? And it sounds like the journey that you went on. Also, I know this is kind of like a two-part question, but it sounds like the way you ended up getting into this wasn't even things that were specific courses that were recommended. You kind of just started to dive into this health journey on your own and started to discover what you were interested in. And even though you were like, I don't know if this is going to turn into a job or if this is going to be beneficial for my career, but this is what I'm genuinely interested in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So this was not what I was studying at all. I took courses in chemistry and biochemistry, and I was like, oh, this is just fun to do on the side.
Yeah.
But actually, this was not like what I was actually studying.
Yeah.
In school. So yeah, that's absolutely.
What were you
right.
studying?
I was studying political economy.
Political economy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just a lot of history, a lot of urban theory, a lot of urban studies. And I thought that's what I was going to do was urban studies.
Okay.
But I didn't really feel the spark.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And so you ended up going a completely different direction.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, yeah. I mean, I studied political science in college, but it had really nothing to do with law school. I ended up becoming a lawyer, and I don't think that more than like 2 of the classes I took during my entire college career actually had anything to do with the job that I ended up doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting how that works sometimes.
So often.
Yeah, but I'm sure a lot of the lessons you learned did end up benefiting you in other ways, or do you think that the education you got in college did not correlate at all?
It made me, I think reading, writing, speaking are really important, just core skills. Before UC Berkeley, I went to a community college, and they had a top-tier public speaking program that was, that won like nationally, and I was just really intrigued. I kind of wanted to go to that community college for that reason.
Yeah.
And I participated in their public speaking program, and traveled all over the country, competed, refined my skills, and learned how to orate on things I'm passionate about. So that felt like those core skills apply to life in so many ways, and have kind of made me the person that I am,
Yeah.
even though they may not directly tie into the knowledge base.
Yeah, I mean, any public speaking skills that you can pick up along the way will benefit you in just having conversations with other people, or let's say that you need to make a sales pitch for a business meeting, or you're trying to just introduce yourself to a potential business partner. There's a lot of ways it will correlate. Whereas these courses, would they give you the topics that you would speak on, or did you choose the topics, and was it personal, or was it like guided and you had to follow what they recommended?
So, anytime you have a school or program that's very high level in something like that, things are regimented, right? There's a process to it. There's a standard operating procedure almost, right? So many of the topics were provided, and many times you would have a choice between picking different topics, and you could also bring a topic, and then the coaches would say, I think this can work, or they would say, you know what, this doesn't seem like a good topic. You need to pick something else. So there was a topic that I chose, and I decided to work on, which sort of has impacted my life very significantly, and that was a topic on fecal transplants. And the year was like 2011.
What's a fecal transplant?
So a fecal transplant is where they take poop from a healthy person, and then they put it up someone else's butt via an enema.
Okay.
And this was done in chickens and livestock in Australia, and it's a procedure that's done when one animal is sick. They'll do like a microbiome transplant, in essence, from a healthy animal.
Okay.
So a few doctors found that you can do the same thing for humans, and it's been used for certain infections like Clostridium difficile, where you just become cachexic, meaning you become really skinny, you have like endless diarrhea, you just end up losing weight, and then you just die at some point. Horrible infection. That was the first time fecal transplants were approved.
Okay.
And I started reading about them in 2010, 2011. I was like, I want to do this as my topic.
Yeah.
I was super fascinated by it.
Yeah.
Just the idea of it, because and then I just started going on forums and reading that some people started doing it themselves because they were like, oh, I want the microbiome of a healthier person. And what some people would find is that they're like, it's strange. I'm almost getting like the personality of this other person from this microbiome transplant. So like even some of the C. diff patients that received fecal transplants would say that. Like they're like, I'm kind of getting, yes, this treated my C. diff, but this other person was like obese, the donor, and now it's like I'm just putting on weight like I've never had before. So that kind of opened the door to like, wait a second, is the microbiome maybe very core to the human subject and to human existence?
Yeah.
And I loved the topic. I was super passionate about it. I spoke, impeccably. I practiced that particular speech maybe 10 hours a day. Just like I was obsessed with the topic. And when I went to finals with it, I was super close to breaking into the final round with it at nationals. And one of the judges wrote like, hey, you are an incredible speaker. I could easily see you getting into the finals round and winning because of your speaking, but the topic is disgusting.
Yeah. Well, it's disgusting for him based off his experience and his traumas. But like, I'm sitting here listening to you, and I understand a lot about like the gut microbiome and how it affects everything. You are what you eat at the end of the day. It affects your mood, your depression, your body, the shape, like how you make decisions. So I'm like hearing this, and this is insane to me. And it's something I've never even heard of this, right? So the fact that you're telling me you're able to transfer someone's feces essentially into another human being, and it is having a direct effect on their personality, their mood, what they want to eat and what they want to do, and their health is crazy, because I thought that it started in the stomach, right? And that the bacteria that's within the stomach has the effect, but I guess the intestines is really all part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so just being able to put it into the intestines, we're getting all the bacteria that they've collected and cultivated in their own bodies. And the bacteria itself is having a direct effect on all these different functions in the body. Does that
Mm-hmm.
sound right?
Yes, exactly. It's like we have many microbiomes,
Yeah.
and we can talk a little bit more about this. But after this, a few years after this, I ended up going to a microbiome medicine training program, and this is the core of my health practice today is microbiome
Yeah.
medicine. This is the thing I'm most passionate about, this topic, and the GI, the gastrointestinal tract. So we have many microbiomes in our body, and that is the core microbiome is like the large intestine. It has a big impact on a lot of other functions, but you have a sinus microbiome, an oral microbiome. You have
How would you define the word microbiome? Like, what is a microbiome?
that is a great question. So microbiome is all of the various microflora that inhabit our human host. So they're not your cells, but they're all the cells that you carry. So these can be bacteria, these can be healthy fungi, these can be parasites, these can be helminths, they can be spirochetes, they can be mutualists, they can be viruses, they can be phages. There's all these tiny, microorganisms, and they are you, but they're also not you. They're not your host genetic material, but you carry a lot of them and everywhere in your body, and they have a really big impact on who you are.
Got it.
So the microbiome, it's not just the good, it's also potentially the pathogenic, meaning harmful bacteria and things that we've accumulated. They're also part of our microbiome.
Yeah. Okay. And you use the word flora. What does flora mean?
So flora is exactly that list of microorganisms
Okay.
that I mentioned right
Got
now.
it. And you also you point out it's not just good but also bad bacteria. And these are just the different locations within the body where we kind of like hold these things that help us regulate our systems for the better or the worse. Okay, got it. And is there like a specific amount of microbiomes within the body, or they're just different places where the bacteria and the pathogens collect?
So there's been numbers that have been thrown around, and as we find new ways to do, screening of these things using different type of metagenomics and different DNA techniques to find out how much are there, the numbers have shifted quite a bit.
Okay.
So there was a number that used to be thrown around, which was where we're 1 part human cell for 10 parts microbial cells, right? I think the latest numbers I've seen, it's like 1 to 1. We're 1 part human cell, 1 part microbial cell, which is also like pretty crazy to
Yeah.
think about.
Yeah, because we're about equal amount of not us.
Yes.
Right? So
Yeah.
I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah.
We're like
Uh-huh.
one part us, but one part other things that we've collected and just like through eating and just going around in our daily life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that even goes more to the saying, you are what you eat or you are what you consume.
Yeah.
Right? I
Mhm.
mean, that and the consumption doesn't just limit to what you eat and what you drink, but what you watch, what you look at, and what you're doing outside, what you shower in. Like it's a combination of all the above.
Absolutely. Who you're around.
Yeah.
Because there's some research that's found that the microbiome aerosolizes from one person to another person. So me and you sitting across from each other, we're sharing a microbiome, which I'm not upset about. You seem like someone with a good, healthy microbiome. You take care of yourself,
Wait, so you said it aerosols? So literally we're absorbing each other's microbiome just from being in each other's space. I mean, I understand the whole energetic aspect that we're definitely sharing energy through like our electric field and, my mood will affect your mood, but I've never heard that we are absorbing each other's microbiome and our like gut bacteria and stuff. But you're saying it aerosols and just breathing the same air is what is causing it, or just being near each other?
We actually don't entirely know what it is, but one of the theories is that it's aerosolizing from our body.
Okay.
And exactly how would that aerosolize from our like colon to
Yeah.
our skin to the field around
Yeah.
us? There's a Dr. Kiran Krishnan. He's a researcher who talks a lot about this. He's spoken about this and described this process. This process is so extreme that when you look at a household, let's say you're living in a house, grandma is on antibiotics, right? You're making no physical contact with grandma. You're not sharing the same plates. You're eating in different cutlery, but grandma lives in the same house as you. Looking at everybody's microbiome, it's going to look like everybody is somewhat impacted by antibiotics, even though just grandma is on antibiotics.
Yeah.
So the people around us have a really, really big impact on our microbiome. And if our microbiome has a big impact on maybe who we are, how we think, then maybe this is an important thing to consider.
No, I mean, you're absolutely correct. And I'm just like thinking of, the households of people that I know that spend time together. They all look the same. They all act the same. They all talk and they eat the same, right? It's like the people you spend the most time with is how you're going to end up coming out. And, like I love my family, but like their eating habits growing up were not the best. And so like we all were in the same mindset, and also just like the way we communicated with each other when I was living at home when I was younger, we all spoke and we acted the same way. And then finally when I separated myself, I was able to like calm down a bit and not be for lack of a better term, a little bit less aggressive than when I was at home. But it's 100% true. It's you're affecting each other on an emotional, spiritual, physical, and it seems like a microbial level too. So super interesting. Yeah, this is super cool. And what's the name of this gentleman again? I want to look him up later.
Kiran Krishnan.
Kiran Krishnan.
Yes.
Well, I'm gonna get that from you later. I'll write it down. But that's amazing. And okay, and so is there a way to stop this when you're sitting next to somebody else, or is it just being in their space is what it is?
It seems like it's just being in their space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. And so you ended up going down this journey, and you went down the functional medicine journey. I know we've kind of made a little bit of a tangent here, but this is awesome, and it also contributes to your story of how you ended up to where you are today. So after doing these speeches, at what point did you shift, and what did you start doing? Like what credentials, what courses did you take to become a specialist in functional medicine?
That's a great question. One of the core trainings that I did, what it's called Functional Diagnostic Nutrition Practitioner, and it founded in San Diego. It's a really great foundational training. And then after that, I started training with various different lab companies directly to understand their methodologies better. And then I did a few advanced trainings in blood chemistry, and just being able to look at blood and analyze blood really well. So a core part of my philosophy since 2017 has been going to conferences, doing like, even though I don't need for my credentialing a lot of like continuing education credits, right? Continuing medical education. I don't need a lot of it, but it's important for me to do a lot of it, like 50 to 100 hours a year.
Yeah.
So that's been a core part of.
Yeah, but I mean, that also just is a comment to you actually enjoying and wanting to learn more, right? A lot of people ask me why I go to so many conferences, or why I listen to so many podcasts, or why I read so many books. It's just because, I mean, if you're not interested in what you're doing, you probably shouldn't be doing what you're doing. And so if you're not consistently wanting to grow, adapt, and learn and become better at it, then it's something you're not passionate about. And you should probably find something that you're passionate about, because then you'll find yourself wanting to learn more, or to expand, and to gain more knowledge. And
Absolutely.
everything in life is always going to be better, and you're going to be better at it when you're genuinely interested in it, right? And even like you went to college for something completely different, but you realize this is not what you're 100% passionate about, and but you were able to find it. And so, people see it as like continuing education, but this is just self-improvement, right? You want to become better at what you do, so you can better inform others and better help them on their journey, so they can improve their health.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so you started taking these courses. So this was something after college, or this was basically you just decided to go a different direction, taking these different courses on your own?
Yeah, so the life story looks a little confusing, because I went to community college first. I graduated high school at 17.
Yeah.
And then I spent actually a little bit, 3 years. I spent 3 years in community college, 3 years at Berkeley. I was always doing some form of studying.
Yeah.
The first sort of herbalism training I did was actually when I was still a student at UC Berkeley.
Gotcha.
And I was studying a lot of the physical sort of myofascial medicine when I was at community college beforehand. And then when I graduated in 2016, is when I just kind of put the pedal down, and started doing a lot more stuff in functional medicine. I also, at that time, I had another health crisis. My health collapsed. I had mold poisoning. I was actually, teaching at a high school, and the high school the building was very old, and it was kind of like in a sort of in like wilderness a little bit, and it was just a very humid environment, very old building, and my apartment also had some mold damage,
Yeah.
and very quickly I lost about 50 pounds from where I am today.
Jeez.
I'm about like 175 today. So I went down to about 128, 129 pounds. So not exactly 50 pounds, but still like close to it. So, I have pictures from that time. My ribs were, you could see my ribs go all the way up, and where you're supposed to have a chest, it was just bones.
That's insanity. I mean, like, I'm 5'7", and I remember wrestling in high school, and I weighed 130 pounds. And you're how tall?
6'4".
6'4", being 130 pounds, that's emaciated.
Yes.
But, like, you were not okay.
I was not okay.
Yeah.
I took pictures just standing, and it was hard to, like, stand, and
Yeah.
I would feel like I'm just gonna, like, fall down, like I had no center of gravity.
Gotcha.
And then my digestion just tanked. And then that was actually, I always find that these experiences, they're beautiful opportunities.
Yeah.
And that just became a place where I was just like, okay, I've learned a lot of things. This is the time to test it out, to see, does this actually work? My doctor said, you have this crazy stomach infection. Here's 4 antibiotics I want you to take at the same time with a proton pump inhibitor. And I was just like, I'm not going to take 4 quad antibiotic therapy.
No, that'll fuck you up.
That would destroy my gut.
Yeah, destroy your gut biome.
And I was just like, I'm gonna stick to an herbal route, and I'll find herbs that can solve this thing. And he literally laughed, and he said, okay, when do you want to come back in? Because that's not gonna do anything. So do you want to come back in 2 months, and then I'll prescribe it? Do you want to do that then? And he was like very like snobby about it.
Yeah.
And you leave kind of feeling crappy, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out.
Yeah.
And then I did. I did. One of the infections I had was H. pylori, and then I had another bacterial infection on top of that. And I came back, and I was like, those symptoms are gone. Can we run some tests? He ran some tests, and he was like, okay, it's gone. And I kind of wanted to be like, I told you so.
You should have. You should have told him I told you so.
But
in like a kind way, right? It didn't have to be like rubbing his face, but I think sometimes doctors need to hear, instead of nuking or giving chemo and just killing the body, that there is a natural way to do it, and maybe even suggesting that for people who want a more holistic approach. This is something I deal with on a daily basis with my clients, because a lot of my doctors just want to shoot them full of cortisol or of steroids, or they want to give them antibiotics, like whatever they're dealing with, right? And a lot of my clients are very holistic, and they're like, no, I want to find a more natural way to do it, and I want to do this without having to take all these medications and all that stuff. And some of the doctors, same way, they get frustrated, and they're like, but this is what they were taught, right? And also, these are the limited means. And the truth of the matter is, it's a lot easier to give someone an antibiotic and an epidural and solve the problem quickly and ruin the body a little bit, than to have to take the time to figure out, what are you eating? How are you exercising? What does your mental health look like, right? Because it's not always a one-stop solution for every person. It's a combination of lifestyle, health, and what they're eating to really help solve those problems. And it's too much work. They can't solve that in a 30-minute consultation, if you're going to get a 30-minute consultation. In a 15-minute consultation, what are your symptoms? What did your blood work say? Okay, take this and get out of here type of situation. Yeah, it's just a different approach to life.
Yeah, and if I had your verbal prose and possibly legal skill set, I would have found a way to respectfully deliver that. But at that time, it was kind of like I'm at the mercy of this person for other things, and it seems like his ego was a big part of how he showed up. And I was just like, I didn't feel like I wanted to threaten that fragile ego.
Yeah, my experience with doctors is, they all really, the thing about them is, the basic premise is this, is they want to help. And they don't like to be told that you're not going to do it or you're not going to listen to them, because once again, that, like your sister explained to you, right? Think of it this way. They just spent 8 years of their life going to med school, making themselves miserable, getting gray hairs, working crazy hours, getting paid very little, and finally making a job. And then finally, when they get there, they're trying to help someone, and then they're like, I'm going to do it a different way. So it hurts their feelings, I guess, a little bit. So I understand both sides of the coin,
Totally.
but
Yeah.
also just, on their side too, there's just always multiple solutions, right? There's, what is it saying, 20 ways to skin a cat, or
Uh-huh.
whatever it
Uh-huh.
is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just being respectful sometimes of what that person wants, because they don't want to nuke their body to just, get it quick fix. They want to come up with a more lifestyle solution that's going to work for them in the long run. Because in my experience, a lot of times when you give people those quick fixes, the problem comes back because they didn't deal with the emotional aspect of it,
Mm-hmm.
or they
Mm-hmm.
didn't deal with what they're eating, or maybe where they're living, or then it just keeps coming back. And it's great for the doctor, they make money, more medication, but realistically it's not making any long lasting change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And also there's something called recidivism, right? Or refractory infection, which just means you get an infection what's the time period in which you will get it again, right?
Yeah.
And the rate of refraction post antibiotic therapy for most bacterial and infections, it's pretty high.
Yeah.
And I kind of want, if I was to do something, right, aggressive, whether it's antibiotics or herbs, I would want refraction to be zero, right? I
Okay.
would not want it to come back.
Yeah.
So that's another whole part of this as well. Yeah.
Got it. Cool. And so you went through this part of your health journey, and then at this point, what happened afterwards? Would this give you the real push to start figuring out all aspects of your health and how to manage it, or what happened?
100%. It kind of felt like at some point I'll have to kind of put it in a very clear narrative of like, maybe I'll write a short book or something about what happened. And it felt like I was solving one thing and then another thing would happen.
Yeah.
And I solved the H. pylori infection and the other bacterial infections I had. And then I was like, I still don't feel great. And I didn't understand mold at this time, right?
Mhm.
I was in a moldy environment.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that was the thing. And then I'm like, okay, I've lost all this weight and I'm skinny. And now my digestion seems livable. Whereas with the infections, it didn't seem like a way I could literally live. It seemed like I could like die from it, right? It just
Yeah.
insane burning in my stomach. It felt like I was going to get a stomach ulcer. And then I started feeling after I solved this thing, like I could only describe it as I was mad as a hatter,
Mhm.
right? And it was just a feeling like my brain was on fire.
Yeah.
And I just started typing in. I would come back from work and just every day on Google type in my symptoms. And then one day I just typed in mad as a hatter and all the things that can be associated with. And I came across this page that talked about, well, what does it mean to be mad as a hatter? Why was that term coined? Well, hat makers used to use mercury when they would make hats, and they would get a lot of exposure to mercury.
Yeah.
And to be mad as a hatter was to be manic and emotionally volatile.
Yeah.
People just thought, oh, hat makers are just like, they're just like that. That's the
Yeah.
profession that attracts
Yeah.
people who are like that. And then it was found that, no, actually, it's related to all the mercury they're exposed to. So then I was like, oh my gosh, that's fascinating. And I look in my mouth and I'm like, I have 13 silver fillings in my mouth. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm so skinny that the toxins can no longer, they don't have fat to go to anymore. I literally have a very low body fat percentage. So they're just circulating now. I lost all this weight, and now I've always had these toxins, but now they're in my system, and now I have mercury. So I started going down the heavy metal path. I just figured out a way. I think I asked the doctor, like, hey, I don't really need to work with someone. I'm in a training program. Can I just order this lab through you? So I just ordered a heavy metal panel, hair, urine, and blood, and just found my mercury levels were very elevated, and that I was apparently not excreting it well, but they were very high in my tissues and the storage of it. So I immediately found a dentist that could safely biologically remove all the fillings and then replace them with ceramic or porcelain, or like a more
Something more natural.
something more natural. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had it done. It took a while because there was a lot of them in there, and
Yeah.
then I did a rigorous heavy metal detox plan, and I just spent like literally it was like 5-6 hours a day. I was just reading about this topic, and I was fascinated too. I was like,
Yeah.
this is so cool that I get to do this for my own body, feel better in real time, and learn about this really complex detox physiology. And then dealt with other stuff after that, but I felt significantly better. Every layer of the onion I chipped away at,
Yeah.
I just started feeling better and better and better.
So it's interesting that you talk about the teeth because I've heard more and more stories as I've kind of learned about it too. I went to a Tony Robbins conference once, and at the Tony Robbins conference, they talked about how important your teeth are, right? So your teeth are connected to your brain. They're basically like a direct correlation to the like neurons in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And they said one of the worst things you can ever do for yourself is get a root canal
Mm-hmm.
because you're essentially causing yourself brain damage by getting this type of procedure. So, for me, I've become diligent about my teeth. I go to a dentist once a quarter and I get teeth cleaning and I get the scraping of the plaque off. And I luckily have never had any cavities because I've been so diligent about my teeth. But a lot of friends that have had issues with their teeth, they have the fillings and they have like a lot of medical issues that have like correlated from having these metal fillings or
Mm-hmm.
these different types of alloys because they're not natural and they're not supposed to be part of your teeth.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, I'm not trying to go anywhere with this. I'm just saying, your teeth are extremely important and you need to understand how important they are and maybe take some time to research it. And I even had one dentist tell me that like your teeth are connected to different meridian lines within
Uh-huh.
your body.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have a problem with one of your teeth, there might be a specific correlated meridian line that can tell you what is going on within your body. So your teeth are connected to everything. And it's just this is just another story that you're telling me that's added on to the knowledge that I've learned going down that journey too.
Absolutely. When
Yeah.
when I work with someone, the first questions I ask, my first assessment is on their mouth and their teeth and their oral health. That's
Yeah.
the first thing. I'll
Yeah.
spend, an hour just doing an oral diagnostic history, looking at the tongue positioning, posture, looking at the upper palate,
Yeah.
looking at root canal history, looking at mercury, sort of if they've had a history with mercury in their mouth. The European Union has banned silver fillings. So it's like a lot of the world is starting to ban silver fillings. And when you look at their history, it's like really, really fascinating. And yes, those teeth that are affected by either the silver or the root canals, there's the Chinese meridian map of all the teeth. So I actually had a root canal that I pulled from my mouth around this time, and it was an old root
There it is.
canal, and I was it's this tooth right here, and the dentist, the normal dentist, they were like, oh, it's fine. But I saw that documentary on root canals. I think it's called Root Cause or something. And I was like, I don't feel like this is okay
Yeah.
in my mouth. It was like 5 years old at the time. And then I went to a traditional Chinese medicine trained biologic dentist. And she said, you're actually like right. Like she's like, there's some bone receding along this
Yeah.
this root canal a little bit. She's like, you would be better if you pulled it. So this tooth is the urogenital tooth when you look at the map of the meridian teeth. And the moment I got it pulled, I had the weirdest sensation in my body. That day, I started peeing out what looked like blood and sand. The strangest sensation.
Oh my God.
It wasn't painful. It was just weird and heavy. Like sand is moving through me and blood. And it's
Yeah.
and I was like looking in the toilet and sending pictures to my sister and
Yeah. Help.
yeah.
Yeah.
And to the dentist, and I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And then the dentist is like, hey, you got to go to the emergency room. That doesn't look right. And then I go to the ER, and then the doctor comes in, and he's scratching his head a little bit. He's like, this is really strange. He's like,
Yeah.
you kind of had he's like, it looks like you had like a stone or something that sort of hemorrhaged and exploded somehow, and that's the blood is kind of the from the damage from whatever happened to it. So he's like, it seems like you kind of released a stone,
Yeah.
but
Maybe
he's
like
like
a kidney stone or something.
something like that.
Yeah.
He's like, it's hard to know exactly what it is. He's like, there's blood. He's like, I can see that there's blood, and the labs are showing, yes, it's blood. You didn't just have a lot of beats. It's like,
Yeah.
this is your blood, and then this, and then it's some kind of the materials of this like sandy texture are a stone.
Yeah.
So for some reason, pulling that, and it did, and then
Yeah.
my bladders and kidneys, it was strange. It just felt better. It just felt like I needed to release that.
Oh my God.
And then my blood sugar, because I always track my blood sugar, it got way more stable after I had the root canal teeth pulled within 3 days. And since then, my blood sugar's been a lot more stable.
Gotcha.
So it's just like, yeah, I think the mouth is so important.
The mouth is so important. Yeah, I was pulling this up.
Uh-huh.
I had an acupuncturist in a biohacking facility that I went to. He like wrote down the tongue, and he basically like put the different parts of the tongue. So like if you have like rips or issues with your tongue, or like weird discoloration in your tongue, for example, like on the sides you'll have a liver or a gallbladder problem. In the middle, if you have rips in the middle, there's a spleen or a stomach digestion issue. And then if you have issues on the lungs, it'll be like the upper part of your front of your tongue, and then the very tip, you'll have a heart problem. If you have any issues all the way in the back of your tongue, it can be a kidney or urinary or bladder issue. And this is literally just by looking at your tongue that he can tell if you're having those kinds of issues. And so it's just super interesting that to understand that your body will give you signals to tell you if there's something wrong, and you can just see it literally by looking at the rips in your tongue if there's a problem going on.
Yeah, super. The meridians are so interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting. It's definitely something that I need to dive into a little bit more. I have a general knowledge about them, but like even one acupuncturist that I had on my podcast a long time ago, Dr. Horning, and she told me that like sometimes you have an injury in your shoulder, but like it's connected to a meridian that might connect to a different organ. So it might actually be an issue with that organ that's causing that shoulder issue. And so it's just, I mean, everything's interconnected, right? It's everything's got, your veins are all going to different places. And if you can understand how it's all connected, then you might be able to find a correlation from a different part of your body. So yeah, it's just, the more you know, the more you understand yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really big on this idea of holism, which is that everything is connected to everything, and the integration of everything. And one of the worst things that's happened, it was a necessary thing, the hyper specialization in medicine.
Yeah.
But it's like your liver is connected to your heart, is connected to your fascia, is connected to your muscle skeletal health, right? I think the fascia has been one thing that's just shown us, like in your example, just that interconnectedness of the whole system.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was like reading an Aubrey Marcus book yesterday, and it like talks about how like, a lot of men, for example, they'll work out so much their chest, right? And they just keep working out their chest, but they don't work out their back, and they don't work on mobility. And so you end up tearing your shoulders because your fascia gets tighter and tighter and tighter to support like this chest that's just trying to expand, but the rest of the body's not getting a mobility. And so like your body will do what it needs to do to support whatever you're trying to do to it. So if you're doing something improperly over and over and over again, your body's going to just, it doesn't, it's just like, how can I help the brain? Whatever the brain's trying to do will assist it any way it wants, even if it's the wrong way to do it. And at some point, you'll end up tearing your rotator cuff or get other shoulder injuries because you're not properly balancing out the body. So it's just understanding your body's always going to do what the brain tells it to do, even if it's not the right thing to do.
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to make sure we get enough time to talk about Ayurveda, and I also want to get enough time to talk about your company and to talk about what you guys are doing there. So, we've heard about your background. We understand that you've basically ended up on this journey through your own personal health journey, and you've had a couple severe scares, and they ended up pushing you in this direction. So how did you get into Ayurveda, and what is Ayurveda?
So Ayurveda is, on one level, the science of life. So it's one of the oldest medical systems in the world. It comes from India, and it's also it's an herbal philosophy. It has components that talk about like psychology. There's like a Vedic psychology aspect to it. So in essence, it's the science of living your best life for your unique elemental constitution. So the core component of Ayurveda is your doshas, which is your constitution. These are the elements that make you up. There's three categories of doshas. One is vata, which is air ether. Think about a person like me, right? Slimmer build, can easily go without eating, not thinking about food a lot, very philosophical, very thinker, like very can run a little bit dry. Those are all vata characteristics, air ether element,
Okay.
wiry frame. Then you have pitta, fire element. Think about your athletes. Think about people who are strong, energetic, warrior type frames. Some entrepreneurs that you know, have to be working 12 hours a day while going to the gym, right? And they have 6% body fat. That's your pitta type. And then when they're having food, they're eating spicy food because they love that fire. They just can't get enough fire in their life, right? And then they go home and then they're fighting with their girlfriend because they just need more fire, you know? And so, and then you have kapha types, which is water and earth element. These are people,
Kappa?
kapha.
Kapha.
Now, Ayurveda sort of came out before political correctness, right? It's been around for thousands of years. So the way they describe it, it's kind of like they're like people who can gain weight a little bit easier, people who are prone to getting fat, but they have a sticky composition sometimes, and they love foods that are sticky, like ice cream, and sweet foods, and foods that don't have any bitter elements to them. And they're also very earthy and grounded, right? So I think people get obsessed immediately. They hear about the doshas and they're like, they start thinking the physical constitution only, right?
Yeah.
But it's a personality assessment as well. It's kind of who you are, and I find it, even though I'm very passionate about science and evolving the science and learning about the biochemistry and figuring out ways to go deeper into that, I still think it's a very, very helpful framework as life is becoming more and more complex.
Yeah.
Just kind of like helping people ground and understand what are their doshas and what's their dosha constitution can be really interesting. And I'm glad this came up now in the conversation and not earlier, because I've gotten a chance to talk to you, and I think we can talk about your doshas if you'd like to.
Yeah, I would love to. And so just before we do that, so is there four? So
There's three.
There's just three. Okay, so it's sky, it's the water, and it's fire.
Yes, air, ether. It's vata, pitta, kapha.
Vata, pitta, kapha.
Yes.
Okay, got it. And then some of these doshas might combine different elements, or they just...
Yes.
Okay, got it. Because I heard you mention water and earth element would be in one of them. Okay, got it. So yeah, I would love to talk about it. I was interested when you were just talking about it. Is it like, obviously the Vedas and just Ayurvedas in general, but the Hindu culture, there's probably not there's so many writings and there's so many teachings in regards to this stuff. So I can't imagine the amount of knowledge you've had to consume to understand Ayurveda. And I'm sure there's not just one book you can go to and be like, this is the guidebook on how to do this. And so when you're developing and trying to understand what a person's dosha is, are there specific questions or guidelines that you should be following to determine what their dosha is, or is it something that you kind of just have learned through practice and experience?
That's a really good question. So some of these questionnaires and assessments, they seem really just random, really random questions, like how do you feel after you eat cheese, or does your mind ruminate when you go on a walk in a dry climate? It seems like some of these questions I've seen in dosha questionnaires just seem like so outlandish, and how could that correlate with anything? But as Ayurveda's evolved over this very long period of time, it's kind of been refined in that sense in helping figure out what people's doshas are. And I've used certain dosha questionnaires, And I've kind of just, as you're a practitioner of this field, you know, my grandfather was a Vedic herbalist in Pakistan. And as you kind of learn this art form and start doing a lot of questionnaires with people, you start seeing patterns,
Mm.
and it's an intuition of just knowing kind of what someone is. I'll still have some people do the questionnaires, and it just seems to align exactly with what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And intuition isn't a process I think we can entirely understand.
No, but it's just a feeling and a knowing, and it's like
Yeah.
as somebody described to me, it's a gnosis. It's just your body can tell you things, and you'll just know it immediately. Sometimes it doesn't even take having to speak to anyone for a long time. Within the first 2 minutes, you'll be like, I have a feeling of what this individual is like. Yeah. Okay, awesome. And so yeah, I would love to talk about what my dosha is, and let's say somebody did come to you, right, to get help with Ayurveda, or they want to help. It's not just Ayurveda, but it's to get help with their health and to get help with their gut biome. Is Ayurveda like something that you would do immediately in the beginning, or would you start with other modalities? Like, how does Ayurveda play into your, I guess, what you do for a living?
So, you know, it's hard to, in my methodology, some people have asked me what percentage of what you do methodologically is Ayurveda.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, I used to assign a percentage to it. I was like, oh, 10%, 20%.
Yeah.
And I've
But
had
it's
a
more
hard,
just a skill set.
yeah, and it's like I don't use it a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things, to be honest, I don't love about it.
Yeah.
I've studied a lot of tongue diagnosis. I'm personally not the biggest fan of it, just because I've seen people say just the craziest things looking at someone's tongue, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I also think I did this breathwork journey once, and it took me generations back, and I felt like I was sitting in a quiet space with like maybe my Ayurvedic ancestors or something. And one of them says, in your modern age, use what you have.
Yeah.
And then a guide said, like, if we were alive at your time, we would be in the labs.
Yeah.
These were the labs. So this is the best we had in
Yeah.
our time. Don't bottleneck this,
Yeah.
you know? And also understand that things were really complicated in this time. Like
Yeah.
taking those Vedic herbs, they were mixed in buttermilk very often.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, you need to take how many grams of this herb in a day? You would be consuming buttermilk like 4 or 5 times a day with that herb. It's incredibly tedious, you know, has an impact on the gut and everything like that. So they were like, things are easier now and
Yeah.
use the science of today. So there's a lot I don't use
Yeah.
from Ayurveda. I really do. The main thing I like is understanding the dosha and the constitution. Understanding your constitution is very helpful.
Yeah.
For everything we do, whether it's peptides, whether it's, you know, some deep microbiome reconditioning, it's like just understanding your dosha helps you just frame and think about who you are as a person.
Yeah, which just goes back to the more you understand about who you are, the more you can understand the decisions you make, and then you can start to see patterns that you might need to be fixing along the way because of how you consistently make choices.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. And also too, like, I mean, you know, I'm just thinking about the nuances, like trying to mimic what they were doing thousands of years ago. It's not even realistic because the soil was different, the herbs were different, the quality that we were taking back then was significantly probably stronger. It didn't have to travel all the way from, you know, maybe where it originally is in its homeland. And it's just things are different now, and we have, you know, ways of measuring the exact way that we're absorbing things, the way that it's affecting our bodies. These are tools that they did not have back then. So I completely agree with you. I think it's great to understand the foundations and how things came about and to take what feels right, but then understanding that we just are in a different world than they were back then, our ancestors. And so we have to approach things with a different look, but we can take the basic tenets that help guide the principles behind what we're doing.
Yeah, that was so beautifully said. I love that. And that's like, yes. And there's this obsession some hippies will have sometimes of like bottlenecking that history and like Ayurveda or traditional Chinese medicine. It's like, those are incredible tools.
Yeah.
But like what you just said, that's so important that like this herb may not be what it was when those ancestors were talking
Yeah,
about.
it's got glyphosates in it now. If it's not sourced from the right place, it could have metal and toxins. The ground is just not as just regenerative as it was. There's so many pesticides. Like this is a completely different world
Mm-hmm.
than what we were
Mm-hmm.
living in back then. It might even be that it's a potential that where they're sourcing the herbs from is having a negative effect because of how many toxins and how many metals are in there. And so, yeah, unless you're really getting down to the nitty gritty of science and understanding exactly what's going into the body, trying to stick to those traditional ways might not be the best approach. It's best to use everything we have in our toolkits nowadays instead of, like you said, bottlenecking yourself down and not taking advantage of all the information that we have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'd love to talk about what is my dosha.
So one it stands out very strongly. There's a strong pitta type.
Yeah.
You have that strong warrior frame, and you've refined it a lot, and you may have been very different in your younger years. You're still in your young years, but
Yeah.
in your younger years,
Mm.
you may have been more. You may have had to work through some of those, that like just deep energy that you have, because I can see there's a lot of that fiery energy, which is incredible and important from an entrepreneurial perspective. You need to have that as the backbone driving you, right? You're very detail oriented as well. So a lot of pitta types are very detail oriented, and that is a skill set, and that's amazing. And it's just, I think from a pitta perspective, you may have had to learn, even not even using this language of Ayurveda, but you may have had to learn at some point to balance that pitta energy and to not aggravate it, right? Because I have friends, a lot of personal trainers I've worked with are deep pittas, and sometimes they'll be angry and they'll be ordering the spiciest food ever.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's just heating your body up.
Yeah.
And they're like literally sweating when they're
Yeah.
eating it, so it's like, you've probably found ways to cool yourself. So there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people can become multi-doshic, right? Some people have a really strong one element or the other element, or
Yeah.
they're missing one. And it can be a good just framework to think about, what elements do I need to bring into my life?
Yeah.
You also have a lot of cultivated kapha, earth element, grounded element. Like kapha people are Dr. Vasant Lad, who's big educator, pioneer in Ayurveda, one of like the big names around today. I heard him say once that they're like very huggable, and they have that like that element to them. So maybe that was something that you cultivated
Yeah.
and did a lot of work around in connecting with the earth. You may have literal practices where you go and you ground, and you bring those elements into your life. So yes, strong kapha, stronger pitta, and maybe a little bit of air. I'm not seeing a lot of vata in you.
Yeah.
I'm just not seeing that. It's more grounded. It's not like up here.
Yeah. I would agree with you. I've heard people tell me that I have a strong pitta. I mean, I run very just high hot, like my body temperature in general. Like people are like, why is the AC on so high? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just like my body runs a high temperature like all the time. But yeah, I also love that aspect of me, consistently wanting to go and move forward. But when you like brought up the thing about like, maybe you go home and want to fight with your girlfriend for no reason, like I laughed. It's like, it just reminds me of like me and my family. Like we're always just finding reasons to like argue or fight with each other. And it's something that I definitely have had to spend a lot of time working on, is realizing, why am I just looking for a fight right now? Like I'm like almost like addicted to the constant confrontation, and especially being a lawyer, there's a lot of confrontational parts of my job, whether it's, with my clients, having to tell them what the right thing to do is, or dealing with opposing counsel. And I just realized it became like a drug where I'm almost like seeking this confrontation, and I like it. And the spicy food, I love fully flavored spicy food. And it's like, yeah, it's like I'm almost like addicted to feeling this like aliveness, this awakeness, and feeling this energy. But I've had to work a lot in the last couple of years on slowing down, grounding, and just like not always trying to seek that fire, because it will burn you out. And you don't want to burn the candle on both ends, because you'll have nothing left at the end. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for the analysis. I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like with this knowledge, I guess, and like I guess imagine, let's pretend that I'm like somebody who come to you and I'm like, okay, I need help with my life, and like what would be the next steps that you would talk about based on what you do, and like what do you provide for people to be able to help them to get better in improving their gut biome?
Great. So, on the aspect of the gut biome, there's different types of diagnostics that I would run, and there's different technologies that I use for stool analysis,
Okay.
and it just depends on the person and what their history is for testing, aka their poop and their microbiome. And so I don't always use the same test. Sometimes I use a 3-day stool panel where you're collecting your poop every morning and then putting it in the freezer,
Okay.
and then sending it off to UPS. You don't want to tell the UPS pickup person what's in the package. That usually bothers them a little bit.
Of course.
And I tell them because I'm like, I don't want it to get hot,
Gotcha.
and to make sure they move with it very promptly. But yeah, so
So
the
do you send it to a specific lab that like collects this and then sends you back a lab analysis?
I have a few labs I work with,
Hmm.
and and I'll kind of do different diagnostics for different people
Okay.
based on. I just think precision medicine is so important, right?
Yeah, of course.
I have a few labs I work with that do. There's only a few of them in the country that do parasitology, and they do microscopy of your stool. So these are the few places that are literally looking through your poop for eggs and worms, and they need quite a bit of stool to work with. So so that's not relevant for everybody, but there's people where I'm like, I think we got to look for eggs. I'm like,
Yeah.
there's a very parasitic element here. Sometimes
Yeah.
I'm like, let's just address it and treat it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're like, I really want to know what's going on, and we'll
Yeah.
find some crazy eggs in their
Yeah.
stool.
Yeah, speaking on parasites, I just remember talking to like one of my coaches recently. She's like one of my spiritual coaches, and she had me do a parasite cleanse. I guess in
Mm,
the amount of people that come to you, how many people have parasites in their system, like eggs and tapeworms or weird things like that?
when I run those parasitology panels, it's very, very high.
Yeah.
When other stool testing is actually not great for identifying parasites. Parasites are very hard to identify with our current sort of technology.
Got it.
I mean, if you just think about it, we're so far in science, and I just said the top way to look at parasites is a lab tech literally microscoping your poop, trying to find physical clues, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like it seems like we should be further than that,
Yeah.
but we're not. It's just we're at where we're at in analytic chemistry right now.
Yeah.
But oftentimes when I utilize different antiparasitics, whether they're pharmaceuticals or herbal botanicals, and if they're pharmaceuticals, there's always a medical doctor that our team is working with, right? And a lot of people either feel significantly better.
Yeah.
Very often people will poop out worms as well. And sometimes like I have a scientific mind, and I'm like, I'm like, can you collect that, please?
Yeah.
Because I don't like I don't there's a little bit of like parasite like porn on Instagram where everybody's like, oh my god, like I'm releasing parasites.
Yeah.
And then I look at that and I'm like,
Right.
that's not a parasite. I'm
No.
like, that could be your intestinal lining. That could be the herb that you
Yeah.
took.
So I have a story for you.
Okay,
So
please.
one of my coaches, she
Mm-hmm.
had me do a liver cleanse.
Uh-huh.
And so gallstones,
Uh-huh.
the green gallstones.
Uh-huh.
So this was God, I don't know how much I want to share about this. I had to drink like a bunch of disgusting liquids, and then I did an enema so that I could get like the cleanse stuff that needed to go up there. And essentially, she said the same thing. She's like, "Will you please take a picture?" And so what comes out when you do a liver cleanse is these little green gallstones,
Uh-huh.
and they literally look like little rocks that were in your body, but some people have big ones, someone have little ones. I had a bunch of little ones, but she showed me some pictures of people that she had done with before, and like some of these rocks are like this big, like literally a little circle, like maybe not that big, but like little tiny ones like that. But it was insane the amount of green stones that came out of my body. I was like, what the hell is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And it was an absolutely like, I'm so glad I did it, because she's like, you'll be in shock when you go through this process, because it was a lot that came out. But if you've never done a liver cleanse or you've never done a parasitic cleanse, I think especially if you're like any bit above 30, I think it's a good time to start doing that. And it's something that I plan on doing every couple years just to make sure I'm cleaning out my system. But like Oasis is telling us, is pretty much most of us have parasites. We have issues with our guts. And a lot of these things deal with the bacteria and what's going on in there. And if you're not cleaning yourself out regularly and taking care of yourself, it can lead to a myriad of different health issues.
Absolutely. And one of the interesting things with our gut ecosystem is a lot of bad stuff likes a lot of bad stuff. So Dr. Mahmoud Ganoon at the Mycology Institute, he found that a lot of pathogenic fungi, they share, fungi are an entirely different part of the animal kingdom from bacteria, right? And fungi will share space with bacteria. They'll live under the same sort of ecology and they communicate with each other. And so they like the bad guys like each other.
Yeah.
And then a lot of parasites will often be holding heavy metals. So there's a way to remove them without exploding them. There's some trendy, like, bro-y protocols on Instagram I've seen. I've gotten these ads where it's like bros that are just like, I do MMA and I like, do all this hardcore stuff. And now I'm doing this parasite cleanse and you got to do this parasite cleanse.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I'm just one of these programs I got an ad for. I was like, I just want to see what this is. It was like $40. I was like, I just want to pay for it and just, I want to see. And it was horrible. It was like, you take a sugar cube and like turpentine and castor oil. And I'm thinking about the physiology of a parasite. You're exploding it in your body. You're not gently removing it. When you explode a parasite, all the things that are inside it are now in you and a part of it. It could have viruses inside it. It could have so many things in there.
Oh, wow.
So you want to like paralyze it and then just gently, remove it.
Got it. So the ones that you were talking about, the one that you bought, it's like a nuclear bomb.
Yes.
That's going in and it's blowing it up.
Mm-hmm,
And then you're saying the process that you do, it basically stuns it or paralyzes it, and then you'll just naturally move it out of your body.
Exactly. Mm-hmm,
Okay. God, I didn't even know that there's different types. I mean, I don't understand the science of these parasite cleanses. I just know it was recommended to me. I'm assuming I didn't get the nuking one. But then again, I don't know. How did you tell the difference just based off the chemicals that were going in versus what you guys do? Like, what is the difference between what your cleanse is and what their cleanse is?
I try to be as close to the science as possible. And some of these topics like parasites, there's so much woo-woo out there. There's so much like the person at the herb store is telling me this. I'm following this detox millionaire on Instagram and he's telling me that I need to be taking this product, right? So for me, I literally, you come to my house and you'll see I have integrative parasitology textbooks. I read I want to know everything that's published on some of these parasites. And I want to look at clinically what we can do for people based on the science. Sometimes I do use pharmaceuticals. So yes, it's sort of with the herbs, the principle is to paralyze and kill and then remove. And then sometimes we do use pharmaceuticals because we need a stronger solution that can be a little bit more systemic. And that can work really, really well too. Some people just are downing herbs for very long periods of time and they're not addressing it, right? I know a few men that if they listen to this, they'll know I'm talking about them, that have rectal pinworms, and just causes your butt to be itchy all the time. And it's pretty awful because they have to itch. You itch your butt, and then you don't think about it, but then you're itching your face, right? You're touching someone else's face, right? And it's like, so
this is bad.
It's and it's like kids get pinworms all the time.
Okay.
Like a lot of moms know this. Like,
what causes rectal pinworms?
what causes any parasite
Got it.
is there's a German test. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's a 2-finger test. So you can actually do it right now. You take 2 fingers, and then you just put them right here.
Okay.
And then if you have a pulse, then you have parasites.
Got it.
So,
That's funny. That's funny.
so
But I guess like what gets to the threshold of causing these really bad parasites? Is it just like something you eat? Is it like, is there specific foods that might fuck you up more, like meaning more bacteria? Or is it just like a combination of lifestyle that it provides the perfect microbiomes to allow to transfer into the negative space instead of saying a good bacteria?
that's a really great question. It's heavily debated. And this is a lot of parasitology research happens in developing countries in the global south because there seems to be a really big issue, right? You've seen pictures of emaciated kids with these big guts and bellies. So there's also the case where you go to Brazil and you pick up a parasite that everybody there has,
Yeah.
right? Because they're drinking that water. It's not
Yeah,
like,
but you're not used to it.
but you're not used to it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So same thing for the bacteria and the parasites. Your gut is not used to that. Your biome, your virome, your healthy parasitome is not used to that. So it's a complex question around what makes someone prone to immunoreactivity and someone not prone to immunoreactivity. And it can be actually that somebody has a more toxic environment that lets it proliferate a little bit more. Yeah, the pinworm thing, I've thought a lot about this as I know like a few men that are going through this, and it's very persistent, and you have to treat very aggressively.
Yeah.
You have to like wash your sheets every day, because like you're just gonna get reinfected. You have to change your underwear all the time, right? It's like, and people don't follow through with it, and then they get close to it and it just comes back. So there's a lot of reasons why someone's terrain, their whole body environment might be more prone to higher pathogenic infection and problems.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why. So showering more often is obviously going to be better for removing like bacteria and stuff, right?
Absolutely.
Can you shower too much to hurt your gut biome? I don't know if you ever faced that question before.
That's a great question. And this is where precision medicine is really important. Is some people, if they have certain things like that, like they need to be showering more often. But then there's some people where it does strip the sebaceous glands on the skin, which is the oil producing glands on the skin. And you need that healthy oil, that healthy skin biome. And the water quality sucks where they're showering.
Yeah.
And now they're dealing with, halogens and like toxic minerals, and it's destroying their skin biome, and they're showering too much, and they need to address their deeper detox physiology, which is why does your sweat smell so bad?
Yeah.
Instead of just like showering too much. But a lot of people do benefit from showering more.
Mhm.
With certain types of mold toxicity, we found that there's certain bacteria that can actually live on the skin when they're exposed to water damaged buildings. It's a whole area of studies. It's called actinomycetes. And so some people, they'll move out of their mold, they'll get rid of everything. And this is very cutting edge. A lot of actually doctors and practitioners don't really know too much about this topic. But yeah, it's often, I use testing for this to see who has that on their body and is reacting to that. If that's the case, then showering more is literally therapeutic.
Gotcha. Okay. I want to talk about a couple things before we let you go. So I want to talk about what are the top, let's say, 1 to 3 tips that you'd give people that want to improve their gut biome today, or what would be some things that you would recommend that they could start doing. And then I want to talk about your company, Integrative Oasis. And then I want to ask you at the end, what did you sacrifice to have to get here today? So I want to go through those 3 things.
Amazing. And the first question again?
The first question is, what would be your top tips to give people that are looking, let's say that they might feel they have a biome issue? Would it be to reach out to a functional medicine specialist, or maybe there's like specific foods that you'd recommend, or is it really too much to even give like just specific tips because they really need to come in and talk to someone to see what's going on?
Totally. Yeah, I think some specific tips that are just so easy to overlook. One is some people their dysbiosis, meaning imbalance. It's not that bad. It's just a result of bad lifestyle choices. So for some people, just switching to a whole food diet, radically whole food based, you're not eating anything out of a box, anything that's packaged. That can fix their gut tremendously. Some people just introducing a short period of time intermittent fasting can be really helpful and just sort of solve their gut issues, let the body heal. The body just wants to heal all the time.
Yeah.
We just have to remove the barriers. And if you're doing some of those things and it's getting worse,
Yeah.
or it's not getting better,
Yeah.
then you need to go see a specialist. Need to go see someone who does functional medicine stuff. Need to go see a naturopath who works on gut issues, and then do some diagnostics and really figure out what's going on.
Yeah, when you were saying like resetting their systems, right? For anybody who hasn't done like long-term fasting, I typically like to try to do like 2-day fasts at least like once a month. And your immune system resets when you don't eat. Like people think that I need to keep giving it things so that it can do it, but you actually need to stop giving it things so that it can properly deal with what's already in there and then give it an opportunity to reset. So something like fasting, if you haven't looked into it, definitely do your own research, but usually 48-hour fast. From the research that I've done, you get most of the benefits at the 48-hour mark, like the autophagy, the immune system resetting. You get HGH as it starts promoting it more HGH. You'll create new cellular regrowth. There's a lot of benefits from it, but sometimes not eating can be the solution.
Totally, and I think and that's a great just framework for it. But if you've fasted for 24 hours and your gut feels worse,
Yeah.
then you have some overgrowth of bacteria that is getting worse in that starved state, and then then that's also becomes a diagnostic thing where you're like, okay, now I know I really need to go see someone.
Yeah.
Or it could lead you to feeling significantly better, like you said.
Yeah, and also what you pointed out at the beginning, I mean, I think it just goes back to the basics. What you eat is going to affect everything. If you're eating fast food, processed food, you're eating junk food, you're going to feel sick and you're going to have problems. So a lot of times it just starts with a lifestyle shift, which is just what are you putting in your body. And so, the only other tip I would just give people too is like a lot of people don't know the amount of water they should be drinking on a daily basis. Should be at a minimum 100 ounces a day. And this was something I learned from listening to Andrew Huberman. I'm not a scientist, so I'm taking this based off of Andrew Huberman. He has a whole podcast talking about how literally drinking less than 100 ounces a day has multiples of percentages of effects, not just on cognitive function, but on muscle repair, on the way that your body cellularly replicates at the base level. So if you want to learn more about that, check out his podcast. But 100 ounces of water a day is just an also basic way to just start help improving your gut biome.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The water question gets really interesting. Water quality, microplastics.
Water quality is a huge part of it too. Yeah. Are you drinking tap water, which is not the solution? Make sure you at least have some sort of filter to remove the chlorine, the fluorides, and all that stuff. But filtered water is what I'm referring to. And you can buy a basic filter on Amazon for like $100 that really gets rid of most of the issues that are going to be in your water.
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. And is there any other major tip that you'd recommend to people that are going down this journey?
No, yeah, I think once your bases are covered, I think actually everybody can benefit from going to a specialist.
Yeah.
Because even if you perceive that you're healthy,
Yeah.
how do you know that if you haven't looked under the hood of the car
Yeah.
and assessed like the quality of your microbiome, your liver, and just assessed optimization? Because modern medicine is trying to trying to stop crisis, right? That's what conventional medicine is based on. So you don't really get an opportunity to optimize your body. So I think everybody can benefit from optimization.
Cool. So go see a specialist and see what they recommend.
Exactly.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're now at the point where you've started a company called Integrative Oasis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What do you guys do there and what do you guys offer?
Amazing. So Integrative Oasis is my health practice, and it's I have a medical director, so we have an MD that we work with, and it's a pretty incredible just practice. This is kind of what I've worked what my whole life has kind of led up to, and the core for me is microbiome, right, and the gut health and optimizing the gut. I think that is core to a lot of things, and a lot of people have leaky gut. So the most cutting edge labs for leaky gut, which is a very common talking point now, the most cutting edge labs are actually blood tests. They're actually not stool tests. And
Why is that?
it's because of some of the research that's been done over the last few years to validate gastric permeability, right? The junctions, the fence of your gut opening up. A lot of those are blood markers, and a lot of those enzyme pathways we can see in the blood, right? Because if we're looking at the leak, right, we want to see the other side of it,
Yeah.
right? So it's like if your pipe is leaking, are you going to check inside the pipe for the leak, or are you going to check around it? You're going to be like, oh, the drywall around this pipe is wet, right? So that's kind of what your blood is, and that's why I find that to be really important. So the microbiome is super core, and that's kind of what my practice focuses on. And then peptides are something I'm really, really passionate about as well. And also just all the functional medicine kind of things. What does it take to sort of optimize a human being and for their unique body type, for their unique dosha constitution, for their unique metabolic type, for all the things that they're uniquely going through.
Yeah.
So, I'm always training in integrative medicine and functional medicine and just learning about different tools and working on sometimes very complex clinical things.
Yeah.
Like people that have had fatigue that have gone to like a dozen doctors, right? Even functional medicine doctors, people that have really complex gut stuff with like something structurally off with their gut, right? I believe in that we have to try to push the barrier of what's possible, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these diagnoses, you'll get this diagnosis and they tell you nothing is possible. And I always just place in my mind, like, let's try to do the impossible, right?
Yeah.
Because possibility, it's a Zizek quote, possibility is derived from impossibility, right? So we have to be doing this in health right now because a lot of people are suffering, and this health crisis with autoimmunity, with leaky gut, Gen Z kids, they've started out like Benjamin Button, like old people. I'll talk to like a 20-year-old and they talk about their like arthritis and all these health things that they're going through, right? They're like these little old people. That's why they're so mature, So like
they have access to so much information that we never had access to when we were younger.
Exactly. And they also like diagnose themselves with like, I'm going through this mental health thing. I met a 20-year-old girl that was going through a very advanced form of polycystic ovarian syndrome that I had never seen in someone that young. I'm seeing kids with gut issues I haven't seen in 45-year-olds, right? So there is a crisis, and we really have to be putting all our resources forward to try to address this.
Yeah. I wanted to say too with the peptide thing, because a lot of people are getting into peptides now.
Yeah.
This isn't something that you should just start doing on your own and just start taking random peptides because an Instagram influencer said this one's really good and take it. When I say I'm taking peptides, I go to a doctor where we did a blood panel of many, many tests. I paid a couple $1,000s. They tested everything. He saw what's working, what's not working. We had a very in-depth conversation about my injuries, different things that I'm feeling that I need help with. And then he gave me a very specific regimen of the peptides that I take. Like some of the peptides that I take, I don't even know if it'd be good to tell a list to people because I don't know if I'd want them going and just trying to find these things on their own. Like the doctor that I'm on, he has a whole list of the benefits of these, but like, I'm doing IGF-1, which is human growth hormone, NAD+, KPV, thymosin beta 4, LL37, thymosin alpha 1, GHK, CU, and BPC 157. But these are based off of my blood work. He's like, these are the things that I can see that could benefit you the most. And so this isn't just like shooting in the dark. Every 3 months, I get my blood work done again and we check what's working, what's not working. We adjust the dosages based off of what I'm taking. So once again, when it comes to your health, it's always best to reach out to a specialist and somebody who can really help you out. And of course, when it comes to peptides too, you can get really bad peptides online and you can get high quality ones. Make sure that you're going to a specialist who's going to get you the highest quality peptides to make sure they're working and actually helping your body. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's an incredible stack that you're on.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. This guy's really cool. I got connected to him through a friend of a friend who's a billionaire, and this doctor is like the guy that does it for a lot of the rich and famous, and he's got like an FDA approved facility. And so my peptide regime is much more serious than most people would be taking, and it's also not cheap. I'll just say that kindly. But my blood work is pretty much all in the green, like everything I can see. The one thing I've not done is actually my gut biome stuff. We definitely will connect and talk about this after. I'm interested in checking what my status of my gut biome is, because you can tell a lot by your poop. The shape, the size, the consistency will tell you so much about what's going on in your body. And many days I'm good, but then some days I'm not. And I know it's a direct correlation to stress or maybe what I'm eating, but I'm interested to see what that looks like. So I definitely want to talk to you more about that when we're offline about this, because it's some days it's good, some days it's bad, and I just want to see if I can find the correlations to what am I doing on those days that it's off and the days that it's good.
Absolutely. I'd be really curious, because you come across very healthy and optimal, just what that looks like.
Yeah, cool. So my last question I want to ask you, and two things. So first is, what did you sacrifice to get here? And then lastly, I just want to talk about what is the last thing you want to leave our guests with?
Beautiful. So what did I have to I had to sacrifice safety, doing something, because what I'm doing, it's not really by the book in any sense of the term. And that's very scary. So when I was kind of working in the cannabis lab and had a sort of structure to my life, you have to just sacrifice structure and safety.
You said cannabis lab?
Yeah.
Why can't, like cannabis, like marijuana?
Yeah, so we were formulating different products, like nutraceutical products, but the lab was owned by a cannabis company.
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, so that was kind of a direction my life took. That was the last thing before I launched my practice. And yeah, I'd say in a nutshell, I had to kind of risk safety. I had to put a bunch of trainings on a credit card, right? Yeah. And just know and truly believe that this is what I'm meant to do on this planet. And I believe that. So I'm grateful I took that risk, but I would say that was really the thing. And just a lot, I don't feel like anything else all the time I spend on this, I don't feel like that's a sacrifice. Like there was a lot of, well, actually, maybe I can say that was a sacrifice, because I look back at a lot of my 20s and I'll talk to a lot of people and they're like, oh, I was traveling here, I was traveling there. Yeah. And, oh, have you gone here? Have you gone there? Have you done this 21-day festival in the jungle? Have you done this thing, right? And I'm like, no, I haven't done those things. And I wonder, and I was like, why? And I'm like, oh yeah, because my time and money was going towards education so aggressively that I could do nothing else. And that's still maybe the case where in a lot of entrepreneur circles and people are, traveling so much. And I'm just like, my travel schedule is my conference schedule. Yeah. And then I have to do a lot of education. So I guess that is a sacrifice. Yeah. And then one thing that I would leave people with is, some people may be listening.
Before we get into that, I want to ask, because do you feel frustrated or unfulfilled because you maybe have not had an opportunity to go and travel in ways that others have, or are you happy with the choices that you have made so you can help people?
I feel very happy with the choices that I've made. I feel like we have to sacrifice things to get to places. And I feel like life is about service and work. So I don't feel that battle. And I guess I've traveled quite a bit, like in the U.S. a lot because of all the conferences I've gone
Yeah.
to and all the little experiences I've done. And I've traveled a little bit internationally,
Yeah.
but it's always been around stem cell research conference
Yeah.
or, collaborating with the retreat. So never really getting a lot of time. So I don't feel frustrated at all. I think it's part of my purpose. And I also think this is changing as well as I'm growing in my career. I'm
Yeah.
getting more time and learning to invest time in relaxing and, not going to conferences.
All the time.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure. It's I think a lot of people, they can't correlate that a career or what somebody does for a living actually brings them joy and passion, because so many people are in a cycle of doing something that they hate every single day just to get a paycheck so they could go home and chill and watch TV.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so the reason I asked that question is because I want people to realize, like, you can be happy and you can find joy in the things that you do every single day. And if you're not finding joy in what you do, you probably should look for some sort of shift in your life so you can find something you do enjoy.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, what is the last thing you want to leave our guests with today?
What I would just say, I had moments when I was lying and kind of thinking that, like, am I gonna like make it, right? Like, how could there be hope? I don't even know if I have money to pay for a treatment or things, or even know what to do, right?
Yeah,
There's no sign that things could turn around in life, right?
yeah,
But I think the idea of hope is so important. When I was really, really sick at points, I had to dream really, really big. And, something I spoke to my therapist about was dreaming big with faith. You don't need to dream big with a roadmap and a plan, right? And I'm really not talking about just your dreams as an entrepreneur. I'm really talking about your health, right? Some people listening to this might be at a low point in their health journey. They might be going through a crisis. They might not know what's possible, right? It's like knowing that that's an opportunity to transform many things in your life and being grateful for that opportunity, and then just really having that hope and just dreaming big in a health perspective, right? And you don't need to know how that's going to happen, but you do need to relentlessly hold on to that mental idea for that to happen.
yeah, 100%. I mean, I think life is ups and downs, and most of the time we can't see what the benefit of the down is when we're in it. But always the deepest, darkest places will lead to the highest, like peaks later on in life. So it's understanding that there's always going to be ups and downs in life, and you need to stay positive and hopefully recover from whatever you're going through and seeing the lessons on the other side.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Dude, thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate you being here. I learned a lot today, and I'm excited to dive a little bit deeper with you after this, too. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. This was a very informative episode. Thank you, Awais, for being here. We appreciate you.
All right. Thank you as well.